Hello, I am the real life fake wizard. Film critics are out of touch sellouts who have no idea who the normal movie going audience is. And they probably don't care. On April 24th, 2026, Lionsgate released Michael, a biopic of the late Michael Jackson. The film stars Jafar Jackson, the singer's nephew, in his feature debut. It opened to roughly $100 million domestically and over $200 million worldwide, the largest opening weekend ever recorded for a musical biopic. Audiences gave it a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and an A- cinema score at the time of recording this. Critics gave it a 38% at the time of recording this, and for a time it was even lower. Critics all over the world are lambasting this film despite the fact movie-going audiences, including myself, loved it. This is not a new pattern, and it's not by accident. The split between Michael's audience score and its critics score is just the most recent data point in a phenomenon that has been compounding for decades. The Last Jedi, Hook, She-Hulk, Man on Fire, Super Mario 1, Super Mario 2, Captain Marvel, even the Acolyte, the professional critical class, consistently grades films and television against a rubric of sentimentality the audience does not share. And those grades are funneled into aggregator platforms owned by the same studios whose movies they're reviewing, keeping their jobs based on access controlled by, you guessed it, the very same studios they're reviewing. How are you, a movie ticket purchasing customer, supposed to take the word of a movie critic as honest when everything about the way they do business is compromised? You can't. But you know what? I want to explore exactly what film criticism was supposed to be, and why perhaps the answer to what it has become is not to be replaced by the critic class. Perhaps maybe what we should do is starve the apparatus that pools their voices into institutional power. Hey, now hang on there. Before we continue, big announcement. We have a brand new home for all of our live streams, Fake Wizards Live. All our streams are moving to this new channel, effective right now. So if you've been catching us live on this channel, go over there instead. The Real Life Fake Wizard will exclusively be videos from here on out. Here's the schedule. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're bringing you Fake Wizard news. Thursday, we're running 2 streams. First up, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, Culture Crossfire for brunch, featuring myself and Marvin Montanaro of the M4 Empire, where the culture is caught in the crossfire. Then, later on Thursday night at 9:45 p.m. Eastern, Fake Cast is back, where we'll cover all the major movies, television, and game releases every single week. So that's 3 shows a week, all on Fake Wizards Live. The link is below in the description and in the comments too. Come on over and subscribe so you don't miss us going live. We'll see you there. In this content creator world, when you think of a critic, we think of creators now. Or maybe we think of publications. Or journalists, perhaps, writers. Well, what exactly are critics? What were they supposed to be? Pauline Kael wrote film reviews for The New Yorker from 1968 to 1991. She was, by general agreement of her peers and the directors she covered, the most influential American film critic of the 20th century, next to Roger Ebert. In a 1976 interview with Roger Ebert, she described her own job in this way, quote, "I do feel the critic's power is mostly positive, not negative. We can't stop the expensive trash with the millions of dollars behind it, but what we can do is help a good little film get shown and direct attention to the best new directors, the ones who are fresh and exciting." So that was, more or less, the definition 50 years ago. Let's take that at face value. The critic exists to expand the audience for films the audience would otherwise miss. The critic is a guide pointing the moviegoer towards something they would have walked past. Well, those sentiments are then reinforced by Robert Warshaw, who said, quote, "A man goes to the movies, and the critic must be honest enough to admit he's a man." The job of a critic, similarly to a journalist, is to inform the public, providing them honest information to allow people to make educated decisions about their time and their money. A critic is meant to be of service to the public. In 1974, Roger Ebert won a Pulitzer Prize for his nationally syndicated reviews because they were considered legible and articulated well for ordinary readers to understand. Whether you liked Ebert or not, the man's strategy was to be able to connect with and inform the general public. Look at the modern critic class and ask yourself, who are they performing a service for? It's certainly not the audience because of how skewed the critic scores are from what the audience is actually like. We find in countless films now, critics love the things audiences don't, and critics loathe the things that audiences love. So at that point, why should they have any say in our culture at all? Before we can answer who they're serving regardless, it's proven they're not serving the general public anymore. So by definition of what we just defined a critic is, these people are failing to do their jobs. But okay, let's continue this thought process. Who are the critics serving? The dominant critical complaint about this Michael film is that it does not address the sexual abuse allegations that surfaced against Michael Jackson in the 1990s. Critics across major outlets have framed this omission as cowardice of the creatives involved and the Jackson estate. Hey, sidebar over here, they couldn't. The 1994 settlement between Jackson and Jordan Chandler contained a no depiction clause that legally bars Chandler from being dramatized in any film. It's something that the Jackson estate didn't know until they had already made most of the movie, which then resulted in massive delays and reshoots to adjust the entire film. Something to keep in mind. That being said, let's look at the film at face value. The movie ends in 1988 before the timeline where the allegations took place. This movie actually isn't a conventional biopic. Michael is a story about Michael Jackson's life, sure. Is it a jukebox movie that recreates music videos and concerts? Yes, absolutely. But at its core, the story is that of character drama between Michael Jackson and Joseph Jackson, and it's an intense relationship. This isn't about the whole life of Michael Jackson. It's about the relationship between him and his father, which, frankly, is 1,000 times more interesting as a movie. So to be very clear here, critics are judging this film for what it could not be, and not for what it was written to be. This isn't The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi could have been anything Rian Johnson wanted it to be. Luke Skywalker could have been an encouraging, inspiring figure. The plot could have honored its setups of the last film, but didn't. Audiences disliking The Last Jedi were criticizing creative choices made inside a creative space that had zero boundaries. Michael did not have the ability to be anything other than what it was. And frankly, what it was more impressive than what it would have been. It was a compelling story about a father and son. Who are the critics serving by review bombing this movie? You can't tell me they care about the allegations and there's some kind of moral determination to protect children from these people. That's bogus. These are the same critics that gave cuties glowing reviews. Welcome to the access economy. If it's the will of those providing access to crap on a good film, then the crappening shall reign. In June of 2025, an established working critic published a piece on World of Real titled, "Are Film Critics Too Kind?" In it, he openly admitted, quote, "Access is everything now. Screeners, festivals, interviews. So there's an unspoken rule. Don't piss off the studios. Publicists are watching. Say the wrong thing too often and you'll lose early invites. I've seen it happen. I've lived it." He went on to admit that critics privately bump scores upward to avoid looking like outliers on fresh-rated films. And that's just one accord. That's one account. There are many admitting that this game is all rigged. Critics and influencers alike. Dissent magazine reported in 2019 that critics will admit off the record that their jobs depend on lavishing coverage on advertiser-pleasing hits. The same article documented that publications routinely replace skeptical critics with younger writers willing to deliver the studio-friendly listicles the editor wants. So that's the structure: positivity and negativity when it generates the most buzz. A critic's career is materially shaped by which side of that line they fall on, and every individual review they write is being weighed against that incentive, whether they admit it or not. But Hollywood has become wise to the credibility problem of their captured critic class. They know how much friction there is there. Critics are compromised now, and the normal movie-going audience has become wise to this game. So they're already being replaced by something far, far worse. In August of 2024, Disney held a private screening of Alien Romulus during the D23 fan convention in Anaheim. Press from around the world was already in town for this convention, and yet none of them were invited to this screening. GoPro cameras were attached to the backs of chairs to capture audience reactions. At one point, a man walked into the screening complaining of chest pains, and a rubber alien popped out of his chest on cue. The crowd screamed on cue. The footage was then assembled into a sizzle reel and used in the film's marketing campaign, as you're seeing here. Did you know the embargo on influencer reactions was lifted 4 days before the press embargo, ensuring that the first wave of public commentary on the film came from hand-picked paid audiences? And this isn't a new thing. It's been happening for a while now. Influencers are given their very own special screenings of movies and empowered to invite other influencers to attend these screenings as well. See, even a captured critic still occasionally produces an embarrassing number from time to time, and the captured critic still requires the maintenance of an access relationship to keep them in line. An influencer requires neither. Their compensation is the early invitation itself, or travel, or lodging, and whatever sponsorship deals follow from it. And they never have to defend the verdict against peer scrutiny because there is no peer profession to answer to. The content that influencers produce looks like a reaction, but functions as advertising. Working critics are confessing this out loud. The same week Michael opened, YouTube film commentator Grace Randolph, herself a member of the Access Media class, said the following on her live stream while discussing the Michael critical reception. Quote, "Rotten Tomatoes has kind of weaponized influence. I've told you before that this is Hollywood's attempt to work around critics. Influencers are always positive. It's their job to like everything they're paid to like." She then added, "It's very short-sighted if an influencer says this movie sucked. Then they don't get invited back." Randolph is not a clean source on this. Her own paid subscribers called her out in the same live stream, pointing out that she is also an influencer by any honest definition of the word. This parallel pipeline showed up at CinemaCon just a few weeks ago. The Hollywood Reporter's Matt Bellany reported that the audience reactions during Disney's Avengers Doomsday presentation seemed manufactured. Alan Ng and Chris Gore of Film Threat reported similarly, that there were influencers flown out and paid to attend CinemaCon to cheer and howl to make it seem as if there is some kind of sweeping excitement for Avengers Doomsday. Mind you, CinemaCon is not for influencers. It's not a Comic-Con or anything like that at all. This is an event for critics and movie theater owners to attend to see what kind of movies are on the horizon, which is important because that means if you're bringing influencers in, then it is all staged. But that brings us around to answer questions that I've been posing through this whole video. If critics are knowingly being phased out by Hollywood studios in place of influencers, because people statistically trust influencers more than critics, and influencers are easier to control, who do the critics serve today? Remember, the original definition was that they were to be informers to the public, reporting honestly so that people can make honest decisions. Today, empowered by platforms like Rotten Tomatoes, Critic is just another brand of sellout influencer. Rotten Tomatoes is the dominant film review aggregator in the world. It has been since the mid-2000s. The Tomato Meter score appears in trailers, on theater marquees, in the opening seconds of streaming previews, and on the box of every physical disc still being pressed, if it's a good score. Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Fandango. Fandango's majority owner is Versant, the spun-off cable arm of NBC Universal. The minority owner, with 25%, is Warner Brothers Discovery, the same parent companies that release roughly a third of all theatrical product in the United States, therefore own the platform that aggregates the reviews of their product. They also own Fandango, which sells the tickets, and Fandango at Home, formerly Vudu, which rents the streaming versions. The certification body and the box office share a balance sheet with the marketing apparatus that depends upon them. The Tomato Meter reduces every review to fresh or rotten. A 6 out of 10 review and a 10 out of 10 review both register as fresh. A film with a wall of mediocre reviews can be marketed as 95% certified fresh by a website owned by the company releasing the film. The aggregator launders mid-tier reviews into manufactured consensus and sells the result back to consumers as a marketing asset stamped with the studio's own logo. You may be thinking, but Wizard, that's why the popcorn meter exists. Audience scores balance out the captured critics. Yeah, the popcorn meter is rigged too. In 2019, after the Captain Marvel review bombing controversy, Rotten Tomatoes split the audience score in two. There is now a verified audience and an all-audience score. A review only counts as verified if the reviewer purchased their ticket through Fandango. If you bought your ticket at the box office, your review is unverified. If you bought through AMC or Regal directly, your review is unverified. The score privileged on every Rotten Tomatoes movie page is a score drawn exclusively from people who already paid the parent company. Both numbers on the Rotten Tomatoes page for any given film are now filtered through the same corporate apparatus. The tomato meter is filtered through the access economy pressure on critics. The popcorn meter is filtered through Fandango's ticket sales pipeline. Michael is at 96 audience versus 38 critic, but neither of those numbers is a clean reading of true opinion. They are two different measurements taken inside the same captured house, and the house always wins. So here's where we are. The critic doesn't serve you, the aggregator doesn't measure honestly, and the studios have already moved on to a parallel pipeline of influencers because even the captured critic class isn't compliant enough anymore. The house only stays the house here because we keep walking through the front door. The only option when we know that the corporations, the studios, the influencers, the critics, everyone here is trying to sell you a bundle of garbage. They're trying to sell you lies. Is to disconnect from it entirely because it's all rigged. Stop checking the scores. Stop quoting the scores. Stop visiting the aggregator websites. Every click, every view enables this system to keep moving forward. My recommendation is that you find reliable critics and creators whose word you can trust and stick with them. Don't allow your decisions to be influenced by people who are deliberately trying to control you. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus. And come on over and subscribe to Fake Wizards Live. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just kind of did. All right, I'll see you over there.